welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me on the show today, Debbie G and Neo Positivity. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Indeed we are, and we have a whole bunch of good stuff planned for you today, including a special guest who's joining us, Laine Hilton, a male exotic dancer. I mean, when I saw that one, I said, okay, this is going to be interesting. I'm not sure how this is going to play out, but it'll be good. So we're looking forward to this. But I have to start off with a special thing here, a little thing that just kind of got cooked up about 2 hours ago. One of our listeners, somebody who often participates in the live stream, Sam, turns out he's a pianist. And he posted a little thing on Facebook after he got his piano tuned. He called it celebratory improv. And it was good. And so I asked his permission if he could let us play it. And he said, yeah, he would. So here it is, the world premiere of Sam Page's celebratory improv.
Sick.
Bam.
That was sick.
We have a talented listener base. How about that, guys?
Respect, respect.
Wow. I met Sam a few weeks ago in person. It was awesome. Sam, that rocked. I so loved that. That was amazing. You know, because Sam and I were chatting earlier, I said, one thing I love about musicians is that whenever you're listening to someone play, you're actually listening to their soul.
True. That's what that sounded like, too.
Mm-hmm. That's
exactly what it sounded like. Yeah. So well done, Sam. That was great. Thank you for letting us share that to the world. That was fabulous.
I was amazed that he was doing it one-handed there for a couple spots.
Right? Yeah. That's a man who knows where his keyboard is. Let me tell you, he knows where every key is. So, all right. Well, that kind of sets an interesting tone for today. So let's get to talking about Corey. Now, Corey Hilton, he not only does he have this background as an exotic dancer, but he has a mission in life, and it's a really interesting one because his mission is to help people improve their self-esteem, their self-image. I thought, whoa, now that's a really interesting thing for somebody with your background to do. So you got to give us a little bit, you got to fill in the details on that. Like, how did you get there? That's a really interesting place to get to.
Thanks, Walt. I appreciate that intro. I think that first and foremost, I think that sometimes we tend to see a lot of people that are obviously involved in, speaking and public speaking or in self-help for trying to hit a particular demographic or whatever. And they're quite frankly regurgitating out a lot of the same information that a lot of other people are obviously doing in the industry, right? And I'm not going to say that I'm any different than anybody else. I've taken the clues of success from some of the best in the world and put an accent on it myself. But the thing is, the difference with what I'm doing is it's through my own unique lens. It's through my perspective. That I'm not here to say that I'm always right. But at the same time, just through my lens and the experiences that I've had, and I'm not here to even claim that I'm an expert per se. It's more so that I've gone into the realm of being a certified authenticity coach because I just learned so much through my writing process and through my personal development journey, especially over the last few years. And it took me almost 50 years to figure out a lot of the stuff that I've learned in the last couple. So it makes a massive difference actually in my life overall. So sorry about the noise in the background here, but, but yeah, that being said, it's just been, all I can say is that it's been something that I wrote a story and it was about my past, which was very, very unique in comparison to a lot of other people's careers, obviously, right? But the pitfalls that I went through, I determined that were actually pitfalls based on my own, I guess you could say, detachment from my own values and my own authenticity. And so when I actually really found those things internally that I was lacking, I was able to actually go back through my story and determine why I went through addictions, why I went through divorce, and really just found it inside myself when I wasn't willing to do that before, because quite frankly, I was just hiding behind my alter ego, my image that I presented on that big stage of mine for 25 years of my life, you guys. So What I'm saying is that when you've been in an industry where from the age of 17 years old, and I mean 17, like I'm not exaggerating, I'm here in Canada, drinking age is 19, I was indoctrinated into the male dance industry at 17. I was still going to high school. So of course, I go into this crazy business. It's of comparison. It's of perfection, right? And so then on top of that, I go into a bodybuilding career after that was trying to perfect the human body. And so what do I rely on? All exterior without addressing any of my internal issues. So you guys, I literally got away with all this for the majority of my adult life until I was able to actually, I guess you could say, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired with my relationship failures, with my business failures, with all these things that I pointed the finger at so many other people at because I was just so perfect. So I pointed the finger at so many other people without using the thumb. But when I actually started using the thumb, that was when it was a life-changing thing for me. I found that by really attaching to my authenticity, really figuring out what those values were and the emotional feelings that were connected to those values, then I was able to not only address my own issues, but I was able to actually influence other people in my life that I thought could never be healed, where I could never bond those relationships again. I was able to do that just because I was living purely authentically. And so some of those people in my life left and the door closed on some of them, and it opened the door up for a lot of other people that were actually aligned with me, that made my vibration hit a level that it should have been at the whole time. But I was obviously just in the wrong environment, just like so many of us do. I'm just talking about stuff that is quite frankly relative to so many people out there. I just had it through a different lens and a lot different crazy experiences. So that's really what
I got to congratulate you for finding out the answers by the time you were 50, because it took you 50 years to figure out what the questions were. I didn't have the answers yet. I got the questions.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Can I just, I'm just over here appreciating your story. One, I love the authenticity that you show up with and the vulnerability, because it takes a lot of vulnerability for us to be in our truth. So I'm curious, what truths weren't you speaking?
Well, I think, Debbie, really, it depends on the chapter of my life.
Right?
because it really honestly starts off. I literally wrote this out in a bullet point format through my book. So I hate to sit here and plug my book right off the top, but I will say
it's all right.
that is the thing. It really is like I'm actually. It's funny because I used to be a sales guy and I was not being my authentic self. Now that I'm trying to serve people, I'm going right into the book and here's my plug. But the real truth is that to answer your question, I'll start off with I was about 5 years old when I didn't intentionally, but I strayed from my authenticity at a very young age. And I didn't even understand that until I started doing this introspection. So what I'm saying is that, okay, here's an example. The first chapter of my book is called Goodbye Caterpillar, Hello Butterfly. Now, all that really is breaking out of my shell. But the thing is, the reason why I was still a caterpillar for so long was because my truth was actually skewed by my perspective. So the struggle that I had with my truth being my value was not the reality of what was going on. So here's an example of where it can actually, and this is how I try to influence other people that I do training with as well. I open myself up vulnerable and I say, here's my open book, literally, like of 25 years of my life, in fact, longer. And this is all my vulnerability. This is like all the things that have skeletons in the closet. Everything is wide out in the open. Now, I just want you to relate to what I was going through and reflect on your own life and see what happened for yourself, because everybody has these things. So what I mean is this. When I was about 5 years old, you're going to get a little chuckle out of this. When I was about 5 years old, my aunt and my uncle took me to the fair. And when they took me to the fair, I couldn't understand why, because I have a great family, but they took me to the fair and they left me on this Ferris wheel and I got stuck at the top of the Ferris wheel and I was deathly afraid. And so I'm up there and I'm freaking out alone and the Ferris wheel, like the thing is swinging back and forth. I can hear the seat creaking the whole 9 yards and it's freaking me out, right? So years and years and years go by and I'm scared of heights over this whole thing. I've had this incident in my head, this little T trauma, and I wouldn't do things that were like anything adrenaline from heights or anything like that up till a couple of years ago. But when I figured this out, this was what made me realize the fear. I said to my aunt years later, I said, how on earth could you have taken this little kid, thrown him in this Ferris wheel and let him sit at the top of this bloody thing? You guys are great people. Like, why did you do this to me? And she turns around and she says, Corey, hold on, just take a step back for a second. She starts laughing and she's like, you do realize that we were just at the mall and I was plugging a quarter into the little one at the mall. It was only about 7 feet tall and you were just above my head, but you were sitting in that thing, bawling your freaking eyes out, thinking it was the worst thing that ever happened to you, but it wasn't your truth. It was just your perspective, right? So that little incident though actually seriously affected me for the majority of my adult life and held me back from so many things. Just that one. So there's an example, right? But I timeline this through my book. So when I'm doing the chapter on that, I literally have on every chapter, it says truth, perspective. This is a struggle. It's reminded of you as you're reading through it. And then at the end of every chapter, what I do is I wrote out what I call the naked truth. And it all kind of goes with the branding of Take It Off. But what I'm saying is that the naked truth is my accountable, non-drug haze truth that is not motivated by anything else but my full, authentic, like just myself. In my own skin now, that's comfortable in my own skin, that's not trying to sell myself to anyone else, right? Because I did that for the majority of my life. So now when I did this, that's why I call it Take It Off Revelations of a Male Exotic Dancer, because I'm revealing those truths. Each chapter, as you're going through my journey, you're stepping along that journey with me. You're going to see the situations where I almost got killed in Spain doing things I didn't need to be doing. You're going to see the situations where I was at the top of my career and I won Mr. Nude Western Canada and I thought I was on top of the world. And then a year later, I was standing on what they call a meat rack in Texas, in a borderline prostitution situation at the rock bottom of what I thought was the rock bottom of my life. And then I went into a situation where I thought I was going into this new world of having fun and doing drugs that I shouldn't have been doing. But in a way, I kind of should have been doing because it opened up another side of my emotions. So, but that went on a major uphill and then a major downhill as well. So I went to the peaks and valleys of life, and then it ended up going into like the craziness of divorce and the learning experience through that and the degradation of my values through that. And how those emotional feelings, I come back to the emotional feelings all the time. We all have a different set of values. And we sure as heck all have a different set of emotional feelings that are attached to those values. And unless you're truly aware of those, then how can you actually connect with your partner or connect with your people that you're in business with unless you have an idea of how that brain of theirs ticks too? It's all work. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I just come right around to it. All I'm doing, you guys, is I'm just speaking to my 30-year-old self back then and saying, hey, buddy, this is what you don't want to do. You're trying to be man enough in all the wrong ways. You're trying to be a hunter-gatherer. You're putting all this pressure on yourself. You're just communicating with your partner. You're not truly connecting. And you're sitting there saying you can't cry and you got to bottle up all your emotions, and then they all of a sudden all burst out the wrong way eventually. And I put it in my book as a tagline: let the dam break before you damn break. Like, just cry it out if you got to. Do what you got to do. Yeah. So that is a very, in short, point form thing that made me, like I said, it's something that those elements of authenticity that I put in my book, all those values are laid out literally in point form, showing people that, hey, you might be dealing with these same things too, but guess what? The guy that was up there on stage that was like, everybody wanted a piece of them and a piece of him, and for all the wrong reasons, and the person that you think might have had all the confidence in the world, he's going through the same stuff that you are, man. It's just in a different form. So don't get so down on yourself, because it's not that bad. All you got to do is be aware. But a lot of people just go through life like just coasting through it as a slot machine, and going through their relationships as, oh, well, it's going to go through the honeymoon phase and then we're going to get to reality and see how it all works out. Well, that's why we got a divorce rate the way we do, in my opinion, because the 7-year itch is there for a reason, right? Everybody grows in a different way. And if you're not willing to kind of like see how that other person's growing and try to grow with them, then what are we doing this all for, right? So that's just kind of my perspective on it. Just being honest.
Wow, that's fabulous. Well, I love the perspective.
I'm actually digging it, because what I'm really hearing you say is that in your communication that you sought understanding, you seek understanding, and you're asking others to open up to the idea of being understanding as well. So, and I love that, because communication's, isn't it? When we're not communicating, because I heard you say we weren't communicating, we were communicating, we weren't connecting.
That's correct. Right. Yeah. And I guess it's just, it's that whole taken for granted thing, right? Everybody does it. It's just like if you get something brand new, you get a brand new car, right? You're looking at your brand new shiny car, you're sitting in it, you got the smell of it, you got all the things, you appreciate it so much. But by the next week, when you've had your dog in it a couple times and it's got some dirt on it, you're not appreciating it as much as you had the week before. And then a few years go by and you don't even appreciate the car, and it's starting to degrade in your attitude as well towards it. So all I'm kind of saying is that kind of goes with relationships too. It's that whole taking for granted thing, and it's why it is so essential. Obviously, everybody says you got to be able to, recognize what you're grateful for in your life. Well, yeah, there's a reason why, in my opinion anyway. So, and I'm just saying, this is just from my own personal introspection. I'm not saying that, I'm right about everything. I'm only speaking to a certain audience here. I'm not trying to solve the whole world. I'm just saying, for men over 30 that struggle with lack, unworthiness, and that emotional connection side of it, talk to me. I got the t-shirt. I'm not here to say I'm an expert, but I walk that walk, and I really know that based on what I'm able to do now, I have all the confidence in the world to help out other people so they're not wanting to jump off the ledge like I was at 38 years old. That's what it breaks down to,
That's a tough place to be too. Wanting to jump off a ledge at 38.
Yeah, well, there's a mess in the message, and realistically, that's the truth. With anything, you can have a good story, and you can tell like I said, you can regurgitate the same stuff over and over again, but it has to have a mess in the message. And to me, I had a lot of messes in my message, but it's sort of like, I was somebody was trying to be perfect. I was about as imperfect as it could possibly be, right? So now I'm in a mindset of progression. And that's why I work so hard on yoga and just things that can balance me out to attract other people into my life that are wanting to do the same thing. But the bottom line, you guys, is you guys all know, and that's for your listeners too. If you're here to listen and you're here to be educated, you have to be willing and wanting to do it. And you have to actually be willing to take that uncomfortable action and face those things. And authenticity is not the easiest thing to face for a lot of people. It really, truly isn't. It wasn't easy for me. I had to let some stuff out that, well, all I can say is it's in the book. But, when I wrote the book, I almost wanted to hide under the covers because I was like, oh, God, I've let this out to the whole world, right? But now that I have, I'm liberated, and I feel better than I've ever felt in my entire life. And that's not from the exterior. It's from the whole package, right? So it makes a massive difference in the way you feel about yourself.
That's fabulous. That's really good. One thing that keeps coming up over and over and over again with guests, with co-hosts, people, even outside the podcast that I've talked to, somebody has some sort of crisis going on in their lives. So obviously yours was a pretty severe one if you're standing on a ledge at one point. Yeah. And if when they come through the crisis and they come through the other side, they make changes, And they look back and they find that while it's not something they wanted to ever repeat again, it became a springboard. Like there are some people who say that's like the best thing that ever happened to me, which often sounds pretty strange. And I'm wondering, I know it's a strange thing to ask, but is there some truth to the idea that that was one of the best things that ever happened to you?
Yeah. Yeah. Love that question. Well, I love this. It's so unscripted. We're just rolling with it, but you literally, you just picked my brain so hard on that one. It's so awesome. No, my aunt said it best actually when I was going through my divorce and when I was actually at that point of being on the ledge per se. She kind of said it was almost like something just picked you up, Corey, and took you here where you needed to be, and all the resistance that was around you was trying to tell you a message. And even though you weren't wanting to listen to it, you were really wanting to get back to where you were, and you were really wanting to solve those things. It all kind of just, and I hate to be cliche, but happened for a reason. And if it didn't happen, God knows where my life would have ended up. But as much as the pain, I'm grateful for the pain. I'm so grateful for the pain, actually. It's so funny. But that struggle, as hard as it was, and as many tears as were shed through my life, anyways, I'm glad I went through it. It brought me to a place that I wouldn't be sitting where I'm sitting right now. I just wouldn't. So, and the reason why I went through that pain and struggle was from my own irresponsibilities in a lot of ways. And so the only person in the end that I really had to blame was myself. As far as being in the situation I was when I was on the ledge, so to speak. To put a little bit of perspective for your audience on that, the reason why I was on a ledge at that time was because I had lived a under-the-table lifestyle working for the largest beach club in North America in Florida for 8 years of my life and did not have any type of social security number. I was just partying, having a good time, living a very freebird lifestyle that a lot of people would dream of. But at the same time, it wasn't getting me anywhere, and it really wasn't getting me anywhere in my marriage. It was sort of like a ticking time bomb. And in the end, what ended up happening was I was actually trying to get everything together to build a life outside of dancing, and I had an opportunity with a multimillionaire to start my business. This was just before the 2008 stock market crash, and I was supposed to, and I was literally supposed to go back to Florida and open up a flooring store, and we were going to do this whole venture, and he was a very generous man because I helped him out a lot with some of his friends and stuff. And bottom line was this. I got stuck. I came back to Canada to get all my ID reinstated so I could be legal, and I got stuck at the border at 5:00 in the morning with my now ex-wife, and they scribbled on my piece of paper when I was going through customs and said in the back, and they fingerprinted me, and I was banned from the U.S. for 3 years. So I did everything in my power to get back to my wife, my house, my car, my dog, my cat, my white picket fence, and in one moment I lost it all. And within a couple days after that, I lost my wife, and I ended up finding out basically after 7 years of being together with her and not being in any way a cheating husband, even though I was out on the road working, entertaining women. I was actually monogamous, and I'm proud of that. But she was the one that stepped over the line herself. But, again, I played the blame game with her and pushed it all off on her. How dare she do that to me? I was perfect. I brought you out of this crazy world that you were in and brought you into a far better world of entertainment and the status and all that stuff. And I didn't even realize I just covered it all up for so many years, pushing the blame off on her and not taking accountability for my part in it. So when I did that, that was what changed everything, because I pulled the weight off of her and I pulled the weight off of me too. So in the end, it turned out to be a good story. But again, it's that resistance, like it was something that all the resistance was pointing at me from all different directions. And I realized fully when you're being disciplined, it's good to push into the resistance and go towards the resistance. But there was just so much pointing from so many different directions that it was obvious where I needed to be. And so that all happened for a reason.
As you're talking, I know all three of us, I'm sure this is true for listeners as well, we're all thinking to ourselves about a term that we use a lot here on the show, radical responsibility. You took radical responsibility for your own life. And that's not easy to do, but you did it. How do you think you actually got yourself to do that?
About an 8-year Forrest Gump walk.
Okay.
Yeah. I call it the 8-year Forrest Gump walk. My life is a combination. I jokingly say this. If you wanted to call my life a combination of movies, it would be between Joe Dirt, Forrest Gump, and Magic Mike. But Magic Mike, yeah. It's about which one do you want to pick, right? But no, I jokingly say that. But realistically, it was a long process where I had really, I guess, was in my own head for a lot of years and trying to figure out what I did wrong and really just say, really being mean to myself in a lot of ways, having a lot of limiting beliefs, having a lot of negative self-talk. Sorry, poor me, just the victim mindset, and just sitting there blaming the world for all my problems, and not really, and just, the boot of life kind of coming and kicking me in the butt every time I get up to the top of the mountain, and I was trying to figure out why. And then I had to really work on some things internally to understand why I had these subconscious blocks in the first place. And when I figured that truly out, I realized that boot was actually my own boot kicking my own butt down the mountain, because it was actually the saboteur inside my own mind. But that also, you guys, came from, like, again, this is again coming back to, like, everybody says, oh yeah, you got to go back in your childhood. Well, I kind of did, because I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandparents were Depression era people that had a lot of lack, and they had a lot of self-doubt and unworthiness inside of them, and they didn't intentionally do it, but they truly passed it down to a lot of us other family members. And most of my family members haven't really been able to address those things, to a certain degree, some, but not to the point that I did. I kind of was a little different. I was the jumper that didn't want to be in that environment anymore, and just decided, okay, I'm not going to sit inside the same bar drinking the same drink with the same people all my life and be a mediocre. Like, whatever it takes to go out there and enjoy it, I don't care what it takes. Like, that's why when I got the offer to go to the States and go work in Florida, I took a tour van and went halfway across the country and left my family, my friends, and everything I knew behind for a decade, and went and lived a insane MTV lifestyle for a while, right? So, but again, all these things I didn't realize that they were like gold. They were value that I had that the rest of the world wanted to hear about. And it was really weird, because I normalized myself, and I allowed other people in my life to normalize me, family members, people that I knew for so many years. Oh, you're just Corey. And I was like, yeah, I'm just Corey. I don't have anything to really give anybody any value in this world. That's kind of the way I looked at it. What do you have to give value for? All you were was a guy that took your clothes off for a living all your life, right? I degrade myself and put myself down. And then I realized that my value is in the message. It is in that mess. It isn't all the crap that I went through, right? And so it's just a different mindset now, and I don't allow anybody now to bring me in. So I've heard this even on your own podcast before from other guests, but putting people on pedestals when you're either looking down from yours or you're looking up at somebody else's, it's always not a good thing, because you're really, on a lot of ways, you're living inauthentically. And for me, my expectations were so high. Whether I was looking down at somebody or if I was looking up at somebody, my expectations of them were so out of this realm impossible that any partner that I had didn't really stand a chance. To be completely honest, they didn't stand a chance, because I was already so perfect. What a joke. Like, I mean, when I look at that, I'm just like, come on, man. Like, you're not even taking the time to really even figure yourself out, and you're expecting other people to figure their stuff out. Like, how dare you, the audacity. So that's what I'm saying. When I look back at my 30-year-old self, I'm like, buddy, I want to slap you. Hey, hello. Like, wake up. This isn't the way that it works.
So I'm curious. Okay. So in that, because we've all done things that, and we look back at ourselves, and I have these judgments sometimes upon what I was doing, how I was making these decisions or whatever.
Yeah.
But I also know that in our authenticity, we also have a level of self-appreciation and forgiveness that happens. So can you walk us through, how did you begin to accept the beauty of your imperfection? And then how did you practice accepting you just the way you are? Accepting and forgiving anything that you may have judged.
I think honestly, Debbie, that was a really, really struggle. It shouldn't have took as long as it did for me. Because when I was at that point at 38 on the ledge, so to speak, the only thing that I knew was, Corey, you have to get yourself back to the guy you were before you got married. So what do? Oh, you go work on your exterior so you can get acceptance again. So what did I do? I jumped into the gym, started training really hard, got my body back the way it was. Everybody wanted a piece of me again. Same sort of thing. You're in the status role again. Started dancing again, got back into the industry. I was doing shows around town. And it was just like, it was almost like I timetable, or I should say I went back in time 10 years and started being the person I was before. But the problem that I realized is that person that I was before still had massive issues that he wasn't willing to address. So all those Forrest Gump walks that I took, I wasn't even willing to really look at myself through that. I was just, okay, build yourself up so other people are going to love you or other people are going to like you. But I wasn't, if I didn't start writing, and that was the difference. And I know a lot of people say this, they journal and it brings out something. It's so true. So I start writing this book and I start timelining all these stories, and I write 100,000 word, 316 page book that is like just a timeline of this insane career. But then it was finished and I'm sitting there looking at it and I'm like, it's not enough. It's great. It'll sell for like a certain demographic, but it's not, it doesn't have the impact that I want. It doesn't have like the meaning that I want behind it. So I thought I want to leverage this thing and start talking to a certain demographic. And when I did that, it required me to do that inner work and actually go, okay, buddy, you're going to have to start using this thumb again instead, or for once in your life. And, you know, again, when you can do that and you can say, okay, I screwed up here, right? You know, I was doing really crazy things that could have got me killed. I was totally naive in that situation. Old naivety was maybe my struggle in that situation. Shouldn't have been doing that, right? So again, get people to reflect. When were you naive in a situation? Where did you ever put yourself in a compromising situation? I don't care what age you were. Like, think about it. And, you know, what was the end result of that? And how far were you straying for your authenticity when you were doing that, right? So all I'm doing is telling my story and getting people to tell their story, confidential, you know, very confidential. Like, when I'm doing one-on-ones, I'm not here to, you know, blast it out to the Facebook world what people are doing or what their thing in life has been that's, you know, been a tough thing, sledding event or anything like that. But we all have pivotal moments. And a lot of the time, the one thing I will come back to is a lot of the time that through my training, I've realized is just simply that when you have those pivotal moments, especially when it's decision-making moments, everybody brings their emotion into it so much. You look at the stock market, it literally runs off emotion, right? So when you're literally in there, like you're panicking over something that's going on and you're in that emotional state, you're not thinking rationally. So it's like my company, my publishing company that trained me and did all my editing with me and all that. What they trained me on is realize when they call it the arc of intensity. Realize when the arc of intensity is coming up, whether it's a triggering conversation or it's a slow moving freight train. When that arc of intensity is building up, recognize that it's building up, and it's a physical thing usually. It's usually the feeling in your gut or it's a flush of the skin or whatever it is. When you get that trigger, know what it is, rein yourself back, take a breath. Ask yourself why this is happening. Is it the person that's in front of me, or is it the event that happened last week, or is it something that's triggering me from a long time ago? And really ask yourself that before you respond. Because we're in this world of like social media and everything else where people just throw out a response through their emotions and it's taken out of context and then everything's blowing up and everybody's freaking out about stuff and you're not even really truly connecting or trying to understand what that person's even trying to say. Right? So to me, I have differences with political stuff, with religious stuff, with people, all that stuff. And if I'm really on the other side of it, that's when I go towards them and literally say, hey, like, I'm not trying to agree with you or disagree with you. I really am not. All I want to do is just try to figure out why you feel the way you do. Like, let me know so I can understand you in an honest conversation, and then I can respect your perspective and you can respect mine too. It's a reciprocal thing here. Because I know we're not all going to agree on this, on this planet. It just doesn't work like that. But if I can understand you better, we can still relate and have a good conversation. It doesn't have to necessarily be about this thing that we're so polarized on. Usually we agree on more things than we disagree. So, but this is the world we're in now where it's just so black or white. And I just try to find the gray area as much as I can is all, I guess. So. Yeah.
That's a good thing.
I feel like I've been talking forever, you guys. I'm just rambling on. I'm drinking so many cups of coffee today or something.
Well, you're doing good. You're giving some good stuff here. We have been able to isolate where the loop is coming. The loop is coming through your mic. So you said you had an adjustment. If you can make some sort of adjustment, that would help a lot. Because we've been muting our mics to try to limit it, but we do have to unmute at some point to talk. So it would be helpful if we can get that fixed. But I especially loved what you were talking about while you're fixing that. I especially loved when you mentioned triggering. And the reason I love that is because I have been noticing for myself in the last few days that I've been triggering myself, but I have been having a hard time identifying how I've been triggering myself. I'm wondering, did you have any challenge with that, trying to figure out where your triggers were coming from?
I'll be honest, Walt. Can you hear me better now? Is it giving you more of a feedback?
So far, so good.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear a little bit of echo, but not as bad as it was, so it's improved.
Okay. Yeah, just getting used to this new mic here, so it's kind of feeding back on my end now, so that's okay. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that really what it really kind of broke down to for me is again, I had a list of, I would say 50 or 60 value words that I did an evaluation of myself with, and just sat there and went through them and figured out which ones resonated with me the most. Okay, which ones stood out, put a check mark beside those ones. And then from there, I picked my top 8 of those ones, and I jot those ones down. And then I just tried to, if it's integrity, for example, I get a feeling of confidence, or I should say a feeling of confidence or self-worth when I'm integral, when I'm in line with that, right? So that was the feeling that was attached to that. And so whenever, it doesn't matter what it is, if I'm getting triggered by something, what I simply do is I take a step back, I literally look at those value words, those 8, and I try to ask myself, where am I straying with from my authenticity here? Why am I feeling this way? Oh, it's because I am lacking creativity right now, and that gives me a feeling of excitement. And because I don't have that feeling of excitement right now, I'm getting triggered in this conversation. Okay, now I've figured it out. Now I know why. And it's getting that root. It's just figuring out that root and why you feel the way you do. And to me, it's just a mixed bag. Everybody's different. So it's so important to connect, and especially when it comes to partnerships. Like, I truly believe that. And since I've started doing that, I swear, I've really attracted some amazing people in my life and had some connections that I just have never had before. But I'll be honest, I had a different road when it came to trying to figure out emotional connection. And I went down a road, I opened up a door that, I don't have regrets about, but that door didn't take me where I wanted to go. But I don't have any regrets. And that was I'll just tell you the story. I was a male dancer here in Canada, and I hit the peak of my male dance career, and we dance nude here in Canada. So I was full stripping, and I'd won Mr. Nude Western Canada. I took second in Mr. Nude Canada. I was in a position where I got hired to go to the States, obviously, go down to this club in Florida. I entered this new world, and I didn't know anyone. And I'd never done any drugs in my life. The most I'd ever done was taken maybe a 6-pack to a party when I was in my teens. And all of a sudden I walked into this new world, and I'd had total emotional disconnection for most of my life. Didn't really connect with people. And there was no I love yous, there was no sweeties, no honeys in my household. So I was just hungry for it. Right? So I go to Florida, and I get introduced to this new little pill called ecstasy. And all of a sudden I take this stuff, and it was like a door opened up, and a new sensation that I'd never felt before was there. And it was like, I refer to it almost like if you ate food all your life and you didn't have any taste, and all of a sudden you got the taste of food, and it was just like, oh my God, this feels so amazing. And so that was kind of what it was for me. And I got into this major.
Let's not make it sound too good there. All right. We don't.
Yeah.
Don't make it. We want to make this like a cereal commercial. Right?
No, honestly,
people
Neil,
are rushing to go get some.
No, but honestly, Neil, I'm not here to promote the party ecstasy. But what I will say is actually legitimately now, and even the FDA, from what I understand, and don't quote me on this, but they're actually looking at using pure real MDMA, not this party drug, but the actual part that opens up the mind. They're actually considering using that for people with PTSD right now. Because it actually allows it, yes, it does, and it is something.
That's 100% on point. Yeah, and they've done a lot of studies with psilocybin, not sure. Jesus.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but to be clear, this is done. These are studies that are being done with under professional circumstances, things like that. Right. But what they are finding is that it's curing, and the reason it's curing is because it does a serotonin drop.
Right.
So that it flushes it through your brain, and they have to literally reteach your brain how to even produce serotonin, because if you've ever been an addict or you've had PTSD, those systems in your brain get stopped, literally. Yes. So they have to unplug it, and this is just something that they're finding out that works, but it needs to be done into professional care. Absolutely. And if you have any questions, Google it, you'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Debbie.
Yeah.
Real quick, Debbie, I just wanted to ask you, see if you knew. Somebody had told me that if someone was addicted to meth and they stop, it could take up to a year for their brain to start producing dopamine again. Is that correct?
At least, yeah. And in some cases it doesn't ever, because there's also the belief system that is in place that also stops it, and the shame and the criticism. The reason that we all get to the addiction in the first place is if it's not dealt with in any way, shape, or form, then we have a problem there. But that is correct. When you start altering your brain chemistry, it has a problem trying to remember how to get back there. So this is why under professional circumstances that this can happen. When Zappy Zaplin just did the documentary called Reborn with Lamar Odom, and in that documentary he takes Lamar through help guys. What does he take him through?
Rehab? Oh.
I haven't seen it. I don't know.
It's plant medicine. He takes him through iboga.
Ayahuasca.
Well,
Ayahuasca.
they did iboga. They did iboga instead of, iboga, because iboga deals specifically with the receptors for people that are hooked on opiates. Okay. And it's what that they're using now for people that are heroin addicts and opiate addicts and things like that. But it was iboga, and but the thing is that there is a way to have it restructured, but again, it's a whole other show. I'd rather get experts in on this. I've just interviewed experts that do talk about this, and so I've been introduced to it. I've tried MDMA. It's an amazing experience to flush out your brain under supervised conditions. Yeah. And I've done them in microdosing mushrooms. That gets, if you've ever been depressed, and they've had people who were manic depressive, suicidal, and these people are actually cured, no longer needing pharmaceuticals. And that's just how it is. I mean, listen to Joe Rogan's stuff. He brings out some seriously awesome stuff about all of this. But Corey, Corey, you were talking a lot about I've heard you mention that addiction was a thing too. And what I want to say is that my guess is, since you've dealt with the core issues and you're learning how to restructure that, you're learning how to tap into your emotions and deal with situations as they're coming up. Did you find that addiction had a different meaning to you at this point? And the reason I say this is because I did. I found out that addiction was, I looked at alcohol and went, thank you for that year and a half of being there for me, because if you weren't, I probably would have jumped off the ledge. But I don't need you anymore. Just like you said, off that ledge, because we all, I've been there. And no, it wasn't a desirable outcome from abusing a substance. I promise you. But it was an outcome that needed to happen. Because without it, I wouldn't have known how much deep healing work I needed to do. So
it helps form that clay. Form that clay. Yeah. And again, like, I only had 2 experiences on the party MDMA that I actually regretted, because the majority of them, quite frankly, were really fun. I had a lot of really good fun.
Well, I'm kind of guessing they probably were.
But I do know, like, my good friends that, like, some of my closest friends are actually in the medical field now, that went to Europe and took the actual true form of MDMA, like without all the other fillers that are made for the party scene. And it was a completely different experience. So I do understand what you were talking about with that. And you're absolutely right. If it's actually the real thing, just like anything, if you're taking something that's real, there is a result that comes with that territory under professional circumstances, 100%. But when it comes to my, like I say, like I looked at like, my experience with MDMA, the party drug, so to speak. I'm not here to promote it and say that the audience should go out and do it, but all I'm saying is for myself personally, as somebody that actually was really, really hungry for emotional connection, it made a massive difference for me. And so when I think back about when I got out of that scene and I moved back here to Canada and I was in a completely different environment, it honestly wasn't that hard for me to leave that scene or to push that behind me, because I started to inject things that were actually real life things that I experienced, that were like, I started recognizing the little things a lot more. And through that, I was able to get the goosebumps that I've been really hungry for a long time naturally. So now when I think about, like, when I'm in a really amazing relationship with someone, or I'm training someone to actually get value out of what I'm showing them, and it's making an impact, and I'm seeing that impact happening, the goosebumps start rising up on my arm, just like I was on that stuff back in the day. It's the same type of feeling. It's just not a chemical feeling. It's a real adrenaline feeling from being your authentic self. So I am, in a weird kind of way, I actually take that as a very positive thing in my life, and I just utilize it in a way that a lot of people maybe wouldn't, right? Like I just go, hey, it happened. It was part of what I did. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not here to promote it, but it's what worked for me, and I'm happy where I'm at now. So it's regardless of the road, it formed me into the clay that I am today, as imperfectly perfect as it all is. So
I'm totally loving that. I'm going to be quiet here in a second just so that Neo and Walt can jump in. I just want to say that there's a lot of people who have been down that road, but it's the practices that you do every day. So you can go do something that, like plant medicine, like over at Rhythmia, where they have medical supervised people there to help you through, and breath work and all of that. But it's the aftercare. It's what you're doing in your daily practices, which was one of the biggest things that Zappy dealt with Lamar. And those daily practices are what really create the new foundation for your existence. And I love that you've been sharing all of those beautiful daily practices, and appreciation and gratitude is my favorite. So thanks. Now I'm going to be quiet.
I know Neil wants to jump in too. I should give you a little background. Neil actually is a former cop, and he also has worked with people he knows who have had drug issues. So I could see him cringing there in the background. So just so you get a little background here. One other thing before Neil jumps in, the echo that you were hearing, we're now hearing it too. So if you can make any more adjustments on the mic there, Corey, that would be really helpful.
Just try to. Is that helping you guys at all, or is that worse?
That's a lot worse.
Yeah.
It's a lot worse. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I'm going to do, you guys? I'm going to change this.
Okay. Well, that's straightforward. We don't like the mic, we'll go with a different mic. I can do that. That's fine.
Is that a little better?
Let's go
with that sounds good. We'll go with that. Okay.
Yeah, what's up?
Okay.
I just want to touch on real quick, feeling liberated, getting out of your comfort zone, doing some stuff you didn't do before. I encourage everybody to do that more often. I did my first show. You guys know, I don't even know if I even talked about it, but I started a group on Facebook called When I Was a Cop, just for people who wanted to come up and tell their stories. So I always found myself telling some interesting stories. So last night we did some stuff, and it was cool. It was really liberating to get up there and speak my truth and try to share. Tonight we're going to go in and talk about the law of attraction. It's pretty dope. It's like 156 people just shooting questions at you. So that's going to be dope. So get out of your comfort zone. What I really wanted to say real quick before we get to the end of the show, getting used to things. We kind of breezed over that earlier. That is the biggest problem in life right now for all of us. That car was the bomb when we first got it. Now it's just another car.
Yeah.
Keeps you from appreciating it, which keeps you from getting that next car. Same thing with the house. It was great when we first got in it. And where I think it's the real problem is up here. Anytime you get a good mental exercise, like you're saying, I deserve, like you guys know my I deserve exercise, where I say I deserve as many times as I can in one day. Day 2 kind of gets old. You're not doing it. Day 3, you're not doing any exercises. That's why I send out a newsletter, because I want to send out a different mental exercise every day. If we didn't have that block of just getting used to things, we would do our affirmations every day. We would meditate every day. We would get into great rituals, and we would stay there and manifest more and more and more and more better situations. So like that right there is like the biggest problem in life for all of us, because it directly ties into everything we manifest, our manifesting abilities, what's going to come at us next, whether it's coming or not. So if someone can find a way around that, let me know.
But I think also, can I add something to that, Neo? I really appreciated you actually sharing that. And I mean, I think that like we focus a lot on goals, right? Like I'm a former bodybuilder. I had a goal to be the 1% in the world that actually went through the bulking phase, that went through the dieting phase, and went on stage and actually did it. And I did it, right? So I achieved that goal. And then after the goal was complete, what did I do? I went back to what I was doing before. And I'm not saying that you're going to stay in bodybuilding diet phase all your life, but you go through those waves, right? Because it's a goal. It's not a standard that's set. So I think that a lot of the time we tend to go, okay, well, I want to hit this weight, or I want to hit this whatever it is. And we get to that goal and then we're satisfied with it and we don't continue to push forward. Just as just a general, I'm not saying everyone, right? Like this is just what I've even done myself, right? So now instead of, again, trying to be perfect with all of it, I'm pretty kind to myself. Like if I didn't go for my morning hike this morning before breakfast or whatever to kind of get myself motivated. I'm not going to run myself down every day about it. But at the same time, maybe I need to kick my butt in gear and go do it tomorrow, because I know it's nothing but it's something that I need to set as a standard to be able to keep progressing and moving forward. And I just think that you're right. Like, it's just one of those things where we get in our own head sometimes, and it's like, oh, well, I'll just take the day off and, whatever. But that all gets put on the credit card, right? And it's like that with everything. You put it on the credit card, and then that interest just starts building up, and then the guilt starts building up, and you're paralyzed. And so, yeah, I can really understand what you're talking about. That's just human nature in a lot of ways. And it's a battle that a lot of us, deal with. Myself included, quite frankly. I'm no different than anybody else with it, really. But I agree with you totally. It's a thing that is kind of overlooked, I guess you could say, a lot of the time. And it needs to, again, come back to that awareness, right? Just being aware of the person that you are and trying to be the best version of yourself. And like I said, I'm doing this stuff. I'm mimicking a lot of stuff that a lot of the people in this world that I really admire, that are really amazing public speakers that I look up to. I just take all their information in, and what applies to me, what doesn't. And I just throw my own spin on it and put my own accent on it and try to impact people that I can impact. That's it. Like,
that's all we all do. You know what I mean? Throw your little stank on it and see.
Right. Right.
Well, you know what? It kind of reminds me of Ram Dass's quote, "We're all just walking each other home."
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing here. And gratitude versus taking things for granted. There's this, when you've lost it all, there's this thing that happens when stuff starts showing back up. And that is an appreciation, because I know what it's like not to. I know what it's like not to have a car. So believe me, I'm touching my car and I'm saying, I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to get you a bath. You're just so awesome. I do. It's so cute. It's got this little Huntington Beach sticker on the back, and it's all rad. My house, when I'm cleaning and I'm steaming my floor going, I love you. Gosh. Plus, it's a low thought activity. And if you've taken Taya, just saying, it's a low thought activity you can do to actually be kind of meditative. But don't forget to appreciate the thing that you're complaining about.
And the things you're not complaining about. Okay, we got to thug, because right now, if I'm going to use the bathroom, I'm probably going to use the bathroom in my bedroom, which means I'm going to get up and walk across this whole entire house. For me to look around on the way and be like, yo, this is the best house I've ever lived in. Yeah. I just watered a seed, sent out a signal of pure joy, gratitude. And all I did was look up, as opposed to be gone somewhere thinking about Facebook or whatever. It's simple. It's all about choice. You've got to make the choice to do these things more often than not. Because autopilot will have your day go like that. Yeah. We've all been there before. How many times you done drove home from work and you don't remember any of that drive? Not one turn. Probably happened yesterday.
But you don't think that, but those okay.
Make the choice.
Oh, I love that. Have you ever done that though? And you're off because you see all these visions of awesomeness that you're going to all this creating's happening. Have you ever had that happen? You like driving, and I know you're supposed to stay present, but
hopefully, or at least when the traffic's going by,
Look, based off what I just said, is most people aren't present because nobody really remembers how they got home.
Yeah,
just off somewhere else.
Have you guys? I mean, I can speak to a Canadian author. I'm going to promote the Canadian author here for a second, but somebody that wrote an amazing book on that many, many moons ago is Eckhart Tolle's Power Now. I mean, it's it's a Vancouver author that hit it out of the park, because it's just like, when I read his book, I went for a walk with my dog and the colors in the trees were brighter. I'm not even exaggerating. It really was different. It really was. That's how my experience
was with that book.
Totally. And so when I think about greatness, I think greatness is just a second cousin or a first cousin to gratitude in the first place. They kind of go hand in hand. If you're not, you can't really be great if you're not grateful, So, I mean, that's just kind of the way I see it. And when even reading Kyle Cease's book, actually, which is a comedian that I really admire.
Oh, Kyle's the shit.
Yeah, and when he did money, the illusion of money, and he was talking about like how you actually have to go and like take your vibration and the actions that you're doing through the day and rate them from 1 to 10. And if you had 10 actions, divide it by 10 and figure out what your average vibration is. And if you're doing something like scrolling social media and it's a 3 on your 10 scale, do something that's above your average instead of below your average. If your average is 7, then go out and do some zip lining or do something that's above the 7 to keep your vibration higher. It's just that keeping it in check thing. And again, it comes back to that awareness, right? So I'm just learning off of all these amazing people and throwing my own accent on it, guys. This is nothing new. I'm just saying it's just through a different perspective is all. And just because I was a stripper doesn't mean that I can't have an impact.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And by the way, on the Canadian theme, I just want to point out, we have a few people in the live stream, one of whom is Joyce from British Columbia. So you got a fellow Canadian listening right now. So
Actually, I think Joyce is one of my followers, to be honest.
Cool.
She might tune into this. So
Joyce.
Yeah, I'm in British Columbia too, in Kelowna, the Okanagan Valley and wine country. So yeah, blessed to be here.
Beautiful.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, we love it when some of the listeners are able to come into the live stream. It just makes things even more fun when that happens.
I am so curious. I'm gonna start a study now. I want to know how many people read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and at some point just walked outside and looked up and saw that tree had massive more color than it did the last time they looked at it.
I'll be honest.
I had that experience. You're the only other person it's come up with. I need to see who else had that effect from that book, because that's exactly what I did.
True. So true, man.
Out, yep, and you can do
like what? Like why did I walk outside? That wasn't my normal thing back then, to just walk outside, you know. Mm-hmm. And it's just something was just like, go walk outside. Just like my dog's barking right now, right on cue. These are the little triggers, yo. These are the little triggers from the universe, man.
Well, he heard the word outside. He knew what that one meant, right?
Oh,
no.
He sounds awfully cute there to you.
My 4-year-old is obviously wandering the house right now, because he's opened my bedroom and let the dog out. Right on cue.
That is so true, though.
I highly recommend that book, and it was so amazing to be on the Amazon bestseller list like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and see my book sitting right above Eckhart Tolle's book, even if it was only there for an hour or two.
For an hour.
It was there.
You gotta take that screenshot.
Oh, I did. I took the screenshot.
Make it your screensaver on your phone, so every time you look at it, use your screensaver as a mental exercise every day.
Dude, when I was sitting in Memoirs next to Will Smith and beside Barack Obama, I was like, I'm screenshotting that too. Trust me, because I'm just referring to Will on this one. So yeah.
Oh, Will Smith's new book is the bomb. It's so good. Oh my God.
I love some Will Smith.
You know, I want to, something was coming to me, Corey, that, do you have any idea how many women you actually made feel empowered as a woman, as a feminine, as just being, even if it was for a split moment, as being a stripper or being somebody who was in that position of giving attention to women? There were some people who simply just have never had any, or that was their first experience at maybe sensuality. You know, so I'm kind of digging that you did that, and it takes a really special person in this world, honey, to show up. You were of service for others without even realizing it.
Yeah.
But there's some women that you've touched literally without touching that you don't even know about from those days. And that's what I feel about that.
Yeah, well, I was a little different dynamic though too, Debbie, because I wasn't like if you want to call it by stereotypes, a male dancer can very easily have a stereotype of the women that are in the audience. And also the women in the audience can really have an automatic stereotype of the guy that's taking his clothes off up there too. So for me, I was actually brought into this industry by a guy that was considered the Elvis of stripping in Canada. He was very respectful, dressed really well. He really, really just exemplified what a man was all about in a good way, not in necessarily a bad way. And so like when he was up on stage, he was really admired, but when he was off stage, he was even more admired for the person that he was, because he was just one of those people that he just felt comfortable around him. So when I got trained by him, I got trained not only to be a great entertainer on stage, but how to actually represent myself off stage as well the right way. And that's why I was able in a lot of ways to sustain sustain a career that lasted 25 friggin' years.
That's rad. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. So like when I went down to the States, for example, and you're talking about women, for example, that are like in that position, here's the raw truth. Okay. And I'm just going to throw this out there, and I'm not trying to offend any listeners or anything at all, but this is just the raw truth. When I was in the Bible Belt areas, that was the crowds were like absolutely packed, like wall to wall up down the street. And they were the craziest, like I'm talking like rip your clothes off crowd that was just off the charts. And now I'm just saying that without degrading religion in any way. Like I'm saying that I have my own faith. It's not and I respect other people's faith 100%. I'm just saying for what I saw through my eyes, right? So that's what I saw. Or maybe while the Iraq war was going on, I was in a military town, and there was a bunch of husbands that were off fighting the war across the pond. And those women that had been sitting there for 6 months were compromising themselves to basically just have some kind of emotional connection. I wasn't the one to go there and actually do that deed with them, because quite frankly, I had a wife at home, or I had a partner at home, and I couldn't handle actually morally in my own head. I couldn't handle doing that because I didn't want it done to me. And to me, that was just spreading around more bad karma that was going to come back and hit me. So I wasn't willing to go there. There was enough women on the plate that I didn't have to go mess around with some married woman. Right? So I didn't put myself in the position, but I saw so many people stray from their true authenticity to satisfy that urge, regardless of what it was, whether it was being restricted by the people that were around them due to their ideology, or it was just a matter of circumstance as to where their partners were. And I'm not saying it was right. I'm not saying it was right. I'm just saying this is what I saw through my eyes, right? So, and I put that on paper. It's not to degrade anyone. It's just being honest.
I love that, but I don't buy the right or wrong anyway.
No.
Because the fact is, it's all just an experience, and I love that you shared it, and thank you. I'm going to hand it back over to Walt, because I know we're at the top of the hour.
Yeah, we're a little bit, we're crowding through an hour at this point, but that's okay. This has been worthwhile. This has been good. But before we part company, we have to get some information from you to share with the audience. So for those people who are interested in the book, how do they find the book?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's really simple. All you have to do is go to takeitoff.ca, and my book's name is Take It Off, Revelations of a Male Exotic Dancer. You can go there, you can purchase the book, you can get a discounted rate that I'm going to put onto my website in general for any products or services that I'm going to have in the future. It's going to be LOA today. So your listeners can punch that code in. They're going to get a discount on the book. They'll get a discount on my course program, whether it's a video course or if they want one-on-one training, they'll get that as well. You really, when it comes down to it, anytime that I'm doing one-on-one training before somebody even decides to dive into that, I always do a 1-hour consult with them to see if there's somebody that's going to fit, or if for that matter, or truly willing to do it before they make any type of commitment, because it's not a cheap price to be able to do something like that. But in the end, you're going to get a lot more out of it than you ever dreamed. And that's something that for me, it created me to be a better, way better author. It's motivated me to actually want to write other books. And it's changed my life personally and professionally in a way that money just quite frankly can't buy, because you can never take it away from me. Now that I'm educated like that, you can never take it away, and that's the one thing. You got that. Unless your brain goes sideways from Alzheimer's or something, it can't be taken away from you. We all kind of know that. We're all learning and growing, right? So I just want to impact other people, to help out other people to find their authenticity, I guess you could say, at a little earlier age, and be able to be aligned with that the best that they can. So that's my route of living, I guess you could say, in my law of attraction mindset over here. The umbrella is all about authenticity, guys. That's what it really breaks down to for me.
That's great. I think you've actually answered the second question, but I'll ask it anyway, because there might be a few cases where what you just described doesn't fit. So for somebody who just wants to reach out and talk to you, how do they reach you directly?
Same website. You can actually use the chat feature. It comes right through to me. You will get me. And then, of course, also, you can also catch me at Corey, Corey, at takeitoff.ca being my email address. If you just want to shoot questions, I'm always there to answer it. I'm all about serving. I'm not here to sell something to somebody that they don't want or need just to be able to get money. That's not the way I roll. I might have done that in my former life, but now I really want to work with people that want to work on them. And that's what it comes down to. You have to be willing. And just like if I bring somebody in the gym and they say, I want to get great big biceps, and they want to stare at the TV and talk to people all day, that's not going to get you big biceps.
This is true. Unless you're lifting the TV up and down all day. I mean, other than that, you don't have a lot of chance that way.
Yeah. So I can gently guide somebody in the right direction, but I can't pull the weights up for you guys. You're going to have to do it yourself, but I can coach you in the right way. That's for sure. So yeah, this is true. That's pretty much me. And of course, I'm on the social media too, Facebook and Instagram. Instagram is Corey, C-O-R-E-Y, __ Hilton, and then Facebook's Corey Hilton. So same thing, just Hilton like the hotel.
Beautiful. I love it. All right. Well, Corey Hilton, thanks so much for sharing your story. Thanks so much for what you're doing too, how you're trying to reach out to the world and give back, and congratulations on the path that you have trodden, because it was a very difficult path, but you've clearly come out the other side, and you've come out in a much better place. That's a victory. So congratulations for that.
Yeah, I'm just progressing. It's not perfection, and it's never going to be, but I think I'll be 80 years old and still progressing and just trying to be better, right? It's all we can all do.
Yeah, that's how you get to 81. That's good.
That's right. Yeah,
I love that. All right. Well, thank you very much, and thank you, live streamers. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Neo, as usual, and thank you to our podcast listeners, because hey, without you, we wouldn't have a podcast. So.
Hi, Cutie.
And thank you, Cutie. How you doing there, guys?
Hi.
All right. Okay. So anyway, we will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks, guys.